What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're doing one of my all-time favorites that we only get to film once a year, and that is the favorite 26 of 2026. Now, I will be honest, some of these books were kind of more honorable mentions, but we got 26 beauties here to talk about. So without further ado, let's jump into it. It's reading time here at JB's Corner. Quick little intro for those of you that are new here, welcome. My name is Jaya. I love all things books, and I particularly have a slight addiction, if you will, to fiction in particular. My husband would say I have a problem. We have a few too many bookcases at this point, but I genuinely love to read, and I do believe in reading through the TBR. That being said, for those of you that are coming to the channel for the first time, welcome. It's so nice to have you be here as part of the bookish community and enabling my reading obsession. For those of you that are returning, thank you so much for being here. It means the absolute world to me to have you guys here on this journey with me as we basically go through a bunch of different wonderful books. So naturally, in order to prepare for this video, I really sat down, went through my Goodreads, and looked at all 179 books that I read in 2026. I know that's an insane number. That's an insane number for me. But in those 179 books, I then picked out my favorite 26 books, and they have been listed right here, and we will be going through each of these books. So without further ado, let's jump into the video. Guys, just as a heads up, I look like a complete and total genie today, which I'm kind of loving. Not gonna lie, it is the most comfortable outfit that I've probably put on in a while, and I feel like it's just fun to show you guys. It has nothing to do with books, but look how genie-like I look. I look like I'm like, you know what I mean? Anyways, so feeling myself a little bit there, and then also to set the mood, we have a lovely candle that is actively burning. This is the Bergamot Tangerine. So I am here. I have my cold ice water sitting here ready to go so we can get through this stack of books that's sitting next to me. So we're gonna go through these books in no individual particular order, just gonna kind of jump through the various books here. The first one that I wanted to talk about is actually going to be my favorite thriller of the year, which was Kill for Me, Kill for You by Steve Kavanaugh. Now, Steve Kavanaugh is a pretty respected author. He's done a lot of different thrillers in general, and many of them have actually ended up on Book of the Month, and he is a phenomenal storyteller in my humble opinion. That being said, this one was really interesting. This is basically following the story of two women who end up in a what is the word I'm looking for? Support group, where basically someone they've loved has been murdered. And so they essentially form a friendship, and they essentially promise each other that they will murder the prospective individual who murdered their loved one for each other. So think Strangers on a Train, but a little bit different in the sense that this is actually taking place in a cafe and through a support group. So she will kill your worst enemy. All you have to do is kill hers. So Amanda and Wendy are our main female characters, and basically we are following the story of them plotting the revenge against the men who destroyed their families. As they talk into the night, they come up with the perfect plan. If you kill for me, I'll kill for you. In another part of the city, Ruth is home alone when the beautiful brownstone she shares with her husband, Scott, is invaded. She's attacked by a man with piercing blue eyes who disappears into the night. Will Ruth ever be able to feel safe again while the blue-eyed stranger is still out there? These stories are being told from different perspectives and different timelines, and as the story merges together and you get the conclusion of this book, it is absolutely incredible. I definitely loved the book. I loved the twists and turns of this book, and I thought as far as a fresh take on an old story goes, this one was done very well. Another book that I read this year, for example, is Riley Sager. Until date, Riley Sager will remain one of my absolute favorite thriller authors, but his book, With a Vengeance, is kind of a twist on Murder on Orient Express by Agatha Christie, and it just felt very reminiscent of that book, and the twists and turns in that one didn't, I think, pull away from the original story enough where I felt like I was reading something new. So the thing I loved about this book is it definitely has its own original twist to it, which I found really fun and exciting, and I think overall it was just a great book. Would definitely recommend. Next up is actually the third book in a series, and I believe the fourth and final book of this series will be coming out this year. And when I read the first book in this series, it took me a long time to actually pick it up and sit down and read it, and I fell in love with that story plot so quickly and so fast that I have enjoyed every single one of the 3 books that have been released. And I'm talking about none other than Assistant to the Villain series. Now, the Assistant to the Villain series by Nicole Maehrer, I hope I'm saying that correctly, was so much fun. It's a fantasy world where basically we have a young female named Evie, who's an absolutely amazing woman, who is basically struggling to support her family. Her mom has gone missing. Her brother is no longer with them. Her dad is kind of an invalid and can't really do anything. And she's basically in charge of making sure her younger sister and her father are okay. Now, in the process of doing that, she finds herself gainfully out of employment after she has a very abusive situation occur with her boss where she must remove herself from her form of employment, and she accidentally ends up in the employment of the villain who is a celebrated terror in the entire town, and she somehow finds herself in his employment, and essentially the two of them kind of create a bond with one another, and you see the romance that's slowly starting to build between the two of them, and you get to see twists and turns in the storyline as it continues to progress. Now, this book in particular was, I think, really fun. We get to see a little bit more of Kingsley, who's the frog, the prince that was turned frog by accident, who is also the villain's best friend. We get more of Tristan's perspective, who is the villain himself. And we also get a lot more of Evie and some of the other characters as well, such as Claire and, of course, our lovely healer, whose name I'm now blanking on. But it was just so fun to see their perspectives. We got a little bit more of Blade, a little bit of Rebecca. So all of the main characters that you kind of meet through the first book, you get to see their chapters and their perspectives as we're moving further into the story. And you really get a huge twist at the end of this one that I think set up beautifully for the next book. So I'm very, very excited to see where the next part of this series will take us. This next book should be no surprise to anybody because it is actually written by one of my favorite authors of all time. When I did a review video basically covering all of my favorite books thus far, one of the books that I talk about very, very powerfully and very strongly is Kingdom of the Wicked. I love that series. I think it's beautifully done, and I think Kerri Maniscalco just knows how to tell a story. And this year, I also happened to read her first series that she wrote, which was young adult, which is Stalking Jack the Ripper. And there's 4 books in that series as well, and it was absolutely amazing. I loved every single one of them. They just weren't quite as 5-starry as Kingdom of the Wicked, which is why the rest of those will not be showcased in this video of 2026 favorites. But the second book in the new standalone series that is a spin-off from Kingdom of the Wicked came out, and that is called Prince of Sin series. Basically, the book is following the story of the individual princes within the Kingdom of Hell. So we got Rat's story in the first 3 books. We got to meet Sloth and Pride and Lust and all these other characters. And so in the first book, we got Prince Envy's story, which I thought was very, very well done. And it's kind of like a enemies to lovers situation that is also based in trials and tribulations. This book is also enemies to lovers. It's following the story of Gluttony. And in this one also you have a few trials that the characters are going through as well. But in this book, I thought it was really fun that the main female lead character is actually a reporter. It's also really interesting to read about each of the different sins and their various kingdoms and how the individuals that live in their kingdom represent their sin. So I think that was really interesting to read. The demonesses and the demons in this book were very interesting to read about as well. This is obviously a darker premises, a darker novel. You're talking about characters that are ambiguous. We're talking about characters who are morally gray, but very much like I'll burn the world down for you type of vibes in a fantasy setting. So if that sounds like it's up your alley, definitely pick up this book. I absolutely loved it. I would recommend reading the first book in this series, which is Throne of Secrets, before reading this one. Or no, sorry, this one is Throne of Secrets. So then what's the first one called? Pause. I'm going to figure this out. This one is called Throne of the Fallen. Fallen. So the previous book was called Throne of the Fallen. This one is called Throne of Secrets. So I would read Throne of the Fallen before reading Throne of the Secrets. And technically you can read Throne of the Fallen without reading the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy, but I would recommend reading that trilogy first because it really sets the scene for the storyline, the underworld, the fantasy world that you're living in, so that when you jump into these books, it makes a lot more sense. But I'm also very excited to say that the third book in this series will be coming out this year, and it is very heavily anticipated and will be featured in my 2026 anticipated reads video as well. Next up, we actually have a duology, and that is by V.E. Schwab. This series is Vicious and Vengeful. It is basically following the story of what is the word they call it? Extraordinary ability. I don't know why I thought they were called something else other than extraordinary. But essentially, we're talking about individuals who come to the brink of death and then essentially come back. And when they come back, these human beings now are embodied with magical powers, and they're known as EOs, or extraordinary individuals. But the problem is every single time someone dies and comes back, they lose a little bit of their moral compass and their sense of grounding. So these two students, who are our main characters, Victor as well as Eli, basically started out as best friends in college. They're very, very intelligent, very, very smart, and they've always been intrigued by the idea of EOs. So they basically navigate themselves into situations where they wake up one day and they find themselves now extraordinaries, and they have these magical powers, but they also have a new skewed sense of life. This somehow eventually leads to them essentially becoming arch enemies, and we have one who plays more of the role of the villain and one who plays more of the role of the superhero. Throughout the course of this, they also pick up sidekicks and things like that, and it's a very interesting idea and storyline of these extraordinaries creating havoc and chaos in the natural human world. The first book is mainly following the story of Victor and Eli. The second book is actually following the story of a new major villainous character who is the wife of a mobster who ends up dying and then comes back to life. And as they say, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. And that is the case in this book as well. And so we see Marcella kind of coming into her own and becoming this crazy superpower that everyone doesn't know how to reckon with. And as the book progresses, we get to see some old faces and old characters that were first introduced in Vicious as well, as they kind of navigate this space and try to work together inadvertently in order to take down Marcella and save a loved one's life. So overall, great duology, great series. I absolutely loved these characters. I think V.E. Schwab is just a phenomenal author, and I think anyone who enjoys a sci-fi kind of world should definitely pick this up. It's not very heavy on romance or spice or anything like that. It's truly plot driven. It's truly story driven. So if that's kind of more your arena and you do enjoy a good sci-fi, definitely recommend picking this up. And if you're a fan of Marvel, superheroes, supervillains, any of that DC world, this is your series. Definitely pick these up. So I do actually have one more series here that I wanted to include in my favorites of 2025. Now these do count as 3 separate books because not every single book that was part of a series, I loved the whole series to the point where they were my top 25 of 2025. Guys, I'm not okay right now. But this one, I loved every single book, and I thought every single one was super adorable. For those who don't know, I love to read different genres, different age groups, all kinds of things. So as you saw, there was a little bit of a thriller, there was a little bit of sci-fi, there's a little bit of romance, there's a little bit of everything that I kind of like to peek into. And this series is no other. I have heard amazing things about the author Marissa Meyer. She is a young adult author, and she tends to do sci-fi based books. She also wrote the Cinder series, for those who don't know. I have not yet read that series. It is on my TBR. However, this particular series is her trilogy that she wrote, again, kind of in the realm of superheroes for young adult novels. And the series is called the Renegades series. It is absolutely amazing. Actually, sorry. The series is called the Lunar Chronicles, and we have, no, wait. I lied. Lunar Chronicles is Cinder. I was correct. This is the Renegades series, and it is absolutely phenomenal. The first book is basically following the story of 2 divided groups of people. We have original humans who live peacefully, and then we have 2 different groups of individuals. One who are celebrated heroes who basically took down the regime of evil, advanced humans that have magical powers and whatnot. And then we have the group of renegades who are basically running around trying to take down the superheroes because they feel that the way that they came to power was cruel and it actually caused death and injury to a lot of other supernaturally charged people. And so now we have these two sects that are kind of fighting against each other. So we have supervillains and superheroes, and then we have the humans. And in this book, in Renegades, our main female character is actually one of the supervillains, and she is very close to the man that has since passed away that everyone believes is defeated and gone. And she is sent into the world of superheroes as a trial, what am I trying to say? In a trial to basically qualify to be on their team, to get close to the superheroes so that she can steal certain objects that they have in their capture and power that would help resurrect the evil supervillain that everyone's trying to bring back. So we kind of see like this subterfuge, double-sided character vibes, very interesting story plot in the first book with Renegades. And it's also really cute because we get to see a young romance that starts to form between our main female character who is playing both sides and our main male character who is a hero with his own secrets as well. Very, very fun book. In the second book, we have essentially our main character kind of getting exposed a little bit, and we see like mild fractures start forming between her and the superheroes, but she's also starting to develop friends and a sense of belonging there that she's trying to figure out. And then we also see the same kind of fractures and fissures starting to occur with her and the supervillains as she tries to navigate which side she's truly on and what she truly believes in. We also see our main hero character slowly fall in love with her more, which is really sweet to see. And it's just a very, very fun continuation of the series. And in the last book, everything kind of comes to a head where, sorry, that was the second book. Everything kind of comes to a head in Arch Enemies, and all of the truth is out, and now we see different characters basically picking sides and supporting the people that they want to support. We see villains turning on villains. We see superheroes supporting villains. We see superheroes turning on superheroes. We see all kinds of craziness that happens in this book until it culminates into a very, very, very important moment that basically will save humanity as we know it from the brink of extinction. Very, very great series. I loved these books. I thought Marissa Meyer did a great job of creating these characters, these worlds, these morally gray kind of arenas. Of course, it's a young adult, so it's not super spicy or anything like that, but the romance was also very cute, which I absolutely loved, and I love a good closed door romance as well. So this was just a lovely palate cleanser, and I just think the fact that there's literal lives at stake just made it that much more fun for the enemies to lovers vibes in this series. And I would definitely recommend picking them up if you're ever in the mood for just a fun, quick, fast-paced novel set that's very young adult fun vibes. Another sci-fi kind of book, but well, I should rephrase that. It's a sci-fi genre book, and it's very interesting by one of my favorite authors of all time, and this is by Stuart Turton, The Last Murder at the End of the World. In this book, we basically have a colonization of individuals that are living on an island that is protected from a harmful virus / biohazardous agent that has kind of wiped out the rest of humanity in the world. We have 3 scientists that live on the planet along with the villagers. And at the beginning of the book, basically everyone is living in harmony. And then they wake up the next day and the lead scientist has been murdered and killed. And basically now the fog that has been protected away from their island is slowly starting to move towards them, and everyone on the island is going to die unless they can figure out who committed the murder and why it happened. But the problem is everyone's memory has been wiped, so no one recollects what happened the night before. No one has any idea as to how this murder occurred. And so now all of the villagers, as well as the 2 scientists that are still on the island, have to work together in order to resolve this resounding murder mystery in order to stop the end of the world, essentially. Now, in the process of this, it's very interesting because the murderer themselves has also forgotten that they've committed the murder with the reset of time. And so slowly as things become exposed, it's very interesting to see characters kind of change their dynamic with each other as the book progresses, and they get closer and closer to a resolution of why what happened. I loved this book. I thought it was very interesting. The thing I will say about every Stuart Turton book that I've read, though, is each of his worlds that he's created, each of the storylines that he tells, they're very in depth, they're very well thought out, they're very intriguing, and they require focus. So this is not a book that I would say you can really just listen to or casually kind of glance through. This is one of those where you would really need to focus and pay attention in order to catch on to all the characters and the nuances of what's going on in the book. And then as you get to about 50% of the book and onwards, it's very easy to casually read the book. But I think initially that first 30 to 40% of the book, you do have to pay attention to get a real feel for the world and the various characters. But there's just something about this author's writing that I think is absolutely phenomenal. And I love the fact that none of his books are the exact same. Every single one is very different. Every single one tells a very different story. Every single one is in a slightly different offset of the sci-fi genre and the fantasy genre, and just such well thought out books. I will definitely be picking up a book written by this author every time he releases a book. It was just absolutely incredible. Strongly recommend. Important to hydrate, guys. Make sure you're hydrating throughout the day. Okay, the next book that I want to talk about is Rupert Holmes' Murder Your Employer. This was a very fascinating book, kind of in the realm of mystery along with dark academia, I would say. It's a fascinating novel. In this book, we have a man who basically decides that he's going to murder his employer because he has no other choice. This man is evil incarnate. He has caused people to lose their jobs, families to suffer. He signs off on low quality, cheap materials that can lead to deaths of hundreds of thousands of people. And the one person who is standing up to him, who is our gainful employee, is now in a position where he finds himself fired. So he's like, since I'm at the end of the rope anyways, I'm going to do the world a service and murder my employer. However, within the first chapter, he thinks he's successfully gone off to murder his employer, fails miserably, and then gets caught in the act. However, the policemen that he thinks are there to arrest him actually tell him they're going to take him to a special school where they will teach him the appropriate way to murder someone. And he will learn the skill sets he needs to not only commit murder, but to get away with murder. Now, the thing about this prestigious school is the only way you get through this school is by completing your thesis. And your thesis is to successfully murder the person that you have sought out to murder. But the person that you're trying to murder must A, be worthy of being murdered, and 2, in order to successfully get through the school, you have to be able to keep its secrets, and importantly, you must pass its courses. Otherwise, you yourself might find yourself deleted or diseased. And 3, if you do successfully complete this school and you come out of this school in one piece, if you accidentally open your mouth a peep about this finishing school, you will be murdered yourself. Now, the school is very, very expensive, and so our main character finds himself at the school with a mysterious benefactor that has paid for him to succeed in his endeavor of murdering this person, but he does not know who it is. He does not know who's supporting him. So our poor little main character walks into this school having no idea what's going to happen and learning all the tools he needs to bring the world to a better place by murdering his employer. Now, throughout the course of this book, we also get the storyline of 2 major female characters as well, which was really fun to read. And you get to see a caricature of characters within this book that is just absolutely enjoyable, delicious, and hilarious. And I'm so excited to think that this is going to be a series, because I definitely will be picking up the second book to this whenever Rupert Holmes releases it. This I ended up doing as a physical read and an audio read, and I can honestly say the combination of the two was a delicious experience. I strongly recommend everyone take the book in that way if you can, but this is definitely a must read for me. I think if you are interested in reading something funny, clever, different, interesting, and still within that dark academia kind of vibe, book for you guys. Book for you. The next book is a contemporary fiction novel by Alicia Lacani, and that is none other than Schooled. Now, this book has had a lot of talk around it from my understanding, but I don't fully understand what the drama was back in the day when it did come out. But I can honestly say this is one of my favorite books of all time. This book is basically following the story of a young woman who is just graduated from a very prestigious Ivy League college, and she decides that she wants to make the world a better place by teaching. She's been fighting with her parents and her friends about why this profession is the best chosen profession and how she feels very honored to be able to shape the minds of young people. But of course, the concern that everyone has around her is the question of, in the pursuit of teaching all these people, is she going to be able to feed herself? Is she going to be able to take care of herself? And what's the point of going to such a prestigious college and learning so much and becoming such a credible journalist in order to then throw everything away to go back to teaching? Throughout the course of this, she also starts developing a question mark of the world of the elite versus the existence that she's living as a base level teacher, the dynamics within the school itself that really limits her ability to pass on her knowledge to this private school elite environment. And then slowly she starts taking on tutoring assignments, which becomes a morally gray area of whether it's true tutoring or doing work for other people, but simultaneously getting paid incredible, insane amounts of money that then allow her to buy all the luxury goods she wants and live in that penthouse lifestyle. And all of a sudden, the less work she gives her students and the less teaching she does, the more she's invited and accepted and loved by the high level society as they watch their children succeed. So this book is a very morally gray book, and it kind of explores that arena and space. And we watch our character go through various moments in the journey of her own self-discovery and her own self-values and goals as she kind of navigates this private school elite living world. I absolutely loved this. I think anyone who liked, Gossip Girl and shows like that, anyone who loves the idea of getting a idea of the elite life, anyone who struggled with that question of morality and where the line lives between wanting nice things and being able to afford nice things and all those questions, if you will. It's just a fun coming of age book. I think it's really, really fun. And it is a true coming of age book, but I think it's more of a coming of age adult book when someone is kind of on their own and they've moved past that point of college and they're now trying to establish themselves as a professional. The decisions that you have to make, the situations you find yourself in, it kind of relates to that. And I also love the designer aspect of it as well. I love clothes. I love following all of that. So I think it was very fun, and I absolutely adore this book. Definitely one of my all-time favorites. Moving into the world of fantasy, Blood of Hercules by Jasmine was absolutely incredible this year. The second book in this series, which is Bonds of Hercules, also released in 2026. That book was phenomenal, but I don't think it quite hit home the way that Blood of Hercules did. This is a reverse harem book, so I'm just putting that out there. There are multiple love situations that are happening in this book, but essentially the main concept of the book is that there is a young girl who has been living as trailer park trash. She's just trying to get through the day, and her only goal is to keep herself and her brother alive. She's homeless, she's mistreated in the human world, and then all of a sudden she takes a test and they start to realize that she actually has blood of a god running through her veins. So all of a sudden she now finds herself within the world of the Spartans, and within that world she must compete in order to survive. Now she's able to do all of these things, and she comes out as a successor, and now she gets sent to this elite school that she just has to survive and go through the crucible so that she can come out as a winner on the other end and then be granted her immortality and not have to deal with the BS that she's been dealing with her whole life. However, through the course of this, we learn a lot about her parentage and her lineage that she herself doesn't know. And as the reader, you're learning these things with her, which is really fun to read. You also get the story perspective from 2 or 4 major male characters as well, which is Achilles, Patro, also the perspective of Karen and Augustus. And I think that was really fun to read as well, along with Alex's perspective as well. And throughout the course of this, we figure out which house and which God's blood is actually running within Alex's veins. But primarily it's the story of her just surviving this miserable environment she finds herself in, where it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. And it was very, very, very fun and entertaining read. True fantasy. It's very Greek oriented. It's just a different take on Greek mythology. And I can honestly say it was just so much fun. Okay, guys, we're getting there. Stack 1 has now been completed. Stack 2. Of course, I had to include some Christmas books in here. So the first one I wanted to talk about is Good Spirits by B.K. Borison. This book is so cute. It is basically a retelling of A Christmas Carol, but in a romantic, sweet kind of way. We have Nolan, who is basically the ghost of Christmas Past, who gets assigned to Harriet in order to help her kind of overcome miserable things that she's done in her past so that she can move forward in her Christmas journey and in her Christmas life. However, when Nolan shows up, he realizes that this assignment is a little bit different, and maybe our main female character, Harriet, is also a little different. Harriet also realizes there are some mistakes that she's made in her life and in her past, but as the book progresses, we realize that she's coming to terms with the fact that she's been dealt some horrible hands sometimes, and she may not always be at fault. So we kind of see her coming into her own, which is great to see. And the romance between Nolan and Harriet is absolutely adorable to watch. As the book also progresses, you realize that Nolan was assigned to Harriet for a reason, and now she's also going out of her way to help him move on. Very, very sweet book. Very, very supernatural, paranormal romance vibes, but just absolutely the sweetest book and such a perfect Christmas vibe book. So December season, if you guys are looking for that holiday read, Good Spirits is for you. I happened to pick this up in, I want to say February or April of this year. I can't remember exactly when now off the top of my head, but it was earlier in the year, and I was very, very, very skeptical of this book initially. And then once I picked it up, I realized this is probably one of the cutest books I have ever read, and that is The Love of My Afterlife. In this book, our main female lead character dies, finds herself in heaven, and then her quote-unquote therapist ghost, who's going to help her move on, spends time with her and realizes that, you know, maybe we'll give her a second chance, and she's a romantic at heart. So she throws our main character back onto Earth and says, if you can find the love of your life within the next week, you will get to live forever and you can live with this person. If you don't, well, then I have to take away your life card and you go back to being dead. So our main female character is very motivated to find her true love. Throughout the course of this book, she also ends up befriending begrudgingly her annoying neighbor, who is her frenemy, if you will. And the two of them end up on this journey together. They find themselves in very hilarious, funny, cute, romantic comedy situations that are just talked about in the book in the funniest ways and orchestrated by our therapist up above in order to create opportunities for our main female character to find the love of her life. It is such a cute book and such a sweet book to read. I was giggling and laughing and smiling and just having a blast reading this book. This was like a book I also finished within 24 hours, just sitting there and reading it. It's so cute, I couldn't put it down. Strongly, strongly recommend if you're just looking for a fun, bubbly, happy book. I've also been an Ellen Hilderbrand virgin my entire reading life, and I have recently discovered what a mistake that was. There is a reason why that woman is consistently selected as one of the top choices for book of the month whenever she releases a new book. It's because she's a phenomenal author. She recently released a book with her daughter, Shelby Cunningham, which is set in an academy setting and is going to be a series, and it is called The Academy. In this book, we have a bunch of characters who are basically in a private school, upper level boarding school world, and they're basically just trying to navigate their teen years, and they're just trying to survive when a crazy app basically comes out that starts leaking all of the dark secrets that each of these individual characters have. We see friendships that are consistently fraying and moving and changing. We get to see the dynamics of a teenager kind of navigating the school, but we also get the perspective of the novel from the adults within the administrative level as well. Overall, just a fun book, very, very boarding school life. And if you like that kind of vibe, if you ever read British authors like Enid Blyton and loved the Mallory Towers and things like that, or if you were ever into any of like the Nancy Drew type of books, or you were ever into, maybe not Nancy Drew is more mystery, but I guess what I'm saying is like any of those boarding school kind of series, this is a great one to pick up. It has a little bit of mystery and intrigue with it as you're trying to figure out who created this app and who's leaking all the secrets, while simultaneously getting more on each of the individual student characters in the various classes, as well as the dynamic of their relationships with their uppers and the admin as well. So wonderful book, definitely so fun to read, and each character is so well thought out. Loved this book. Going back into sci-fi, I was also a Blake Crouch reading virgin recently, and I finally got a chance to read his books too. And I absolutely loved Dark Matter, as well as, what was it called? Upgrade, which is kind of the superhero vibes that he did. And Recursion was probably my favorite of all time. This one also had concepts in it that I think really spoke to me, because it kind of refers to the idea of karma principle, as well as action begetting consequence, and the idea of what goes around comes around, and not messing with timelines and things like that. Also had some minute nods to Eastern philosophies and Eastern traditions. So I really enjoyed that book. This book is basically following the story of a scientist who develops a chair where when you sit in that chair, you can go anywhere in time, whether that be in the future or in the past. And as they take trips, they start to realize that every time they make a trip or every time they make a change, it causes major consequences. And now these two characters are basically going out of their way to try to destroy this chair before it destroys the world. I'm going to read the back because I realized that was probably very confusing. Reality is broken. At first, it looks like a disease, an epidemic that spreads through no known means, driving its victims mad with memories of a life they never lived. But the force that's sweeping the world is no pathogen. It's just the first shockwave, unleashed by a stunning discovery, and what's in jeopardy is not our minds, but the very fabric of time itself. In New York City, Detective Barry Sutton is closing in on the truth, and in remote laboratory, neuroscientist Helena Smith is unaware that she alone holds the key to this mystery and the tools for fighting back. Together, Barry and Helena will have to confront their enemy before they and the world are trapped in a loop of ever-growing chaos. From best-selling author of Wayward Pines trilogy and Dark Matter, Recursion is a relentlessly paced, intricately plotted tale in time, identity, and memory, and the thriller that will astonish you not just once, but again and again. And I agree. I actually could see myself rereading this book because I think every time you read this book, you will take something different away from it. Recursion was one of those books that I think really spoke to me at every level, and I have sat thinking about it and contemplating the concepts in this book forever. Absolutely adore this book. Strongly recommend. Coming back to Christmas favorites, this is the second book in a series that I absolutely love. This was also the first time I read Megan Quinn, and I absolutely loved her. It is spicy, it is funny, it is great. It is such a hilarious storyline. I love the relationship of the narrator to the characters in the book. I like the fact that it kind of has like moments where it plays on holiday classics, and I absolutely adored Merry Christmas, You Filthy Animal. Now, of course, the first book in this story, How My Neighbor Stole Christmas, was very Grinch focused. This one's a little bit different. This is like kind of sabotage-y and kind of like, oh, like craziness is happening and just reindeer farms and all kinds of tinsel and mistletoe fights that are happening. Just such a great book. It is an enemies to lovers romance, and I thought it was absolutely hilarious. I will read the back for you guys because I'm not explaining this well. Nothing says I love you like trespassing, public humiliation, and a town-wide Christmas spectacle to win your crush back. Atlas Max Maxheimer did not sign up for this. 1 minute, he's anxiously trying to keep his family's Christmas tree farm from imploding. The next, he's passed out in the snow after getting clocked by a suspiciously strong bottle of soda. Enter Betty, new in town, full of holiday cheer, and helping her uncle open a rival tree farm next door. Max is convinced she's out to destroy everything Evergreen Farm stands for. Betty thinks Max might be one sleigh short of a winter parade. Cue the holiday chaos between blizzards, blown reputations, wildly misguided romantic plots, and one stolen ornament with a seriously tragic backstory. This small town war turns into something far messier and much more delicious than either of them expected. Loved this book, absolute hilarity, so much fun to read, just absolutely ridiculous, and would strongly recommend. It was definitely one of my favorite books that I read in 2026, especially for the holiday season, and I just remember smiling, laughing, and giggling along with this book. Loved every second of it. I don't think a year's of favorites would be complete without some specific authors, and one of those happens to be Fredrik Backman. I ended up reading a few of his books this year, and these two were my top favorites. A Man Called Ove is a beautiful story basically following a man who has lost his wife, and he is miserable, he's old, he feels like he's done his part in life, and he just wants to die peacefully so he can be with his wife. But he's also very invested in making sure his community is left behind a happy place, and in the process he gets adopted by a young woman and their family of 3 kids, and he also starts to realize there's a lot more people in the world that care about you than you may have originally thought. For anyone who loved Disney's Up, A Man Called Ove is absolutely a book for you. It's just such a heartwarming, loving book, and it really speaks to the idea of found family and community. And we get to see the story perspective of Ove from when he was a childhood in terms of how he's met his wife. So flashback all the way to current times, and it was incredible. My Friends is basically the story of an artist and his friends, and The artist ends up in a position where he's dying. He's very, very sick. He's not going to make it. And he is outside when he meets our main female lead character, Louise, I want to say is her name. Louisa. And she is a girl with no home, a girl with no identity, a girl with no sense of self. She's a foster child, and she just turned 18, and she's running away from reality, and her best friend just passed away, and so she just wants to see this artist's painting because it means something to her. And she gets kicked out because, of course, people don't understand her or realize why she's there. They think she's riffraff. And when she's outside, she's painting on the walls when she comes across none other than the artist himself. And the artist decides to bequeath this very, very expensive painting to Louisa. And he does this through his best friend, who he knows is also suffering and alone because he's about to lose his loved ones in the process. Throughout the journey, Louisa ends up stuck with this man, and he ends up recounting the story of his friends and his childhood, and the story of how the author became the author, and the two of them inadvertently found family within one another. It is one of the most beautiful stories I have ever read. I definitely think you should read it. I really feel like that information doesn't give much away because the depth of this story and the profoundness of these friendships and how much it shapes each of these characters as they move forward throughout the story is just incredible. And I will still maintain Fredrik Backman will forever and always be one of my favorite authors, and I will read any book that he puts out. Scythe by Neil Shusterman is an incredible book. It is a young adult novel that is basically following the story of a world where death has basically been defeated. So natural death no longer occurs. We rather have scythes that actually help keep the balance of the human population, and they determine when someone dies or when someone lives. Now, when they commit a reaping and they take a soul, they end up pardoning the rest of the family so no one else can die within the family for up to a year. How the reaping happens, when the reaping happens, why the reaping happens depends on the scythe individually. We have some scythes who have true good perspectives, and they are conscientious about every kill and every death that they curate. And we have scythes that believe in like mass murder and are tripping on power and just brutes altogether and really shouldn't be in the position of power that they are. But scythes are some of the most isolated and yet celebrated powerful characters in all of the society. Throughout the course of the book, we basically get introduced to the scythedom and the various characters within the scythedom. We also watch the story of two human individuals who are initially inaugurated by one of the best scythes in the kingdom, a truly kind soul, and he takes both of them under apprenticeship, and then essentially in the end of the first book, both of those apprentices end up with other scythes because of what happens in the plot. And by this happening, they then experience very different forms of training throughout the course of the rest of the book, and the book kind of goes in twisty turny ways as the power hungry scythes are basically taken over and the scythedom is brought back to the initiative that it was created for. Beautifully written book, very, very interesting. I think very powerful in the current political times that we're in as well. Just very, very interesting read. And this book really hit me. It hit me hard. The entire series hit me hard. I enjoyed every single moment of it. The trilogy itself, as well as the standalone novella that goes with it, as well as a companion novel, was very interesting. It's a fascinating series, and it's not necessarily a romance in any way, shape, or form. You have a little bit of romance that's kind of interwoven in there, but it's truly a plot-driven book, and I would say if you're interested in that, definitely pick up this book. It is written for young adults, but I think it's very, very much one of those novels that anyone of any age group can enjoy, and I think it's one of those books that really makes you think about society, the way you live life, value systems, and all such things in this magical dystopian world. Another author that is an absolute favorite that I will consistently read no matter what is TJ Klune. He typically writes books that are centered around same gender relationships, typically male-male, but I will say each of his stories is incredible and absolutely amazing. I think the way that he writes a novel is incredible. I think the way that he weaves the story of love between various characters, shows found family, shows the value of community, and speaks to social issues that we still deal with today is just absolutely incredible. Somewhere Beyond the Sea is the second book to the House in the Cerulean Sea, and it is following the story of Arthur as he decides to come out and tell the story of what his life was like in an orphanage where he was mistreated because he was different, and how he finds himself now in a position where he's responsible for the minds of very young individuals and adults, and he has to figure out how to cater to them and take care of them in a safe way while also preparing them for the real world. It was a very, very, very beautiful book to read. I think it was very powerful. The children in this book is so amazing, and just seeing the cast of characters come back after A House in the Cerulean Sea was incredible. And as far as Wolfsong goes, this is basically following the story of werewolves, and we basically see a story in each of the different books of two major characters. So the story is being told from 4 perspectives in total, and each book deals with a different couple. Wolfsong, in my personal opinion, was my favorite. It's following the story of Oxnard and Joe and the Bennett family in general. You get introduced to the werewolf royalty and Green Creek, and we get to really see the ideas of found family and what makes someone a beautiful person, a leader, someone with a great heart, what allows someone to come into that power of really being thrust into a position where they have to take care of so many people unexpectedly and rising to the occasion. True kindness, true love. It's such a moving book. It is supernatural. You have witches in here, you have werewolves in here, you have magic systems and all these things that are happening. But at the heart of the book, it's really, really just about fan family and this amazing, amazing Bennett family and their loved ones. And I think Oxnard is probably one of the most beautiful characters I have ever read written on a page, and his romance with Joe was just the sweetest thing I've ever read. Wolfsong was by far my favorite of the series. This is a 6, 7, 8 star read for me. This was such a good book. It broke my heart and put it back together, and I adore it for that. And I think every other book in the series was wonderful. Most of them are 4 or 5 stars as well. This is definitely a 5-star series, and I would strongly recommend picking it up. TJ Klune just has a way with writing. Holiday Romance by Catherine Walsh was such a cute book. This is basically following the story of 2 friends who have developed a relationship with each other inadvertently on their travels to Dublin from Chicago every year for 8 years. And now they find themselves in a position where they are both single, but they won't cross that line because they've been friends forever. And our main female lead character was so excited to spend time with the male character, she actually upgraded them to first class tickets and is excited to celebrate with him on the way to Dublin when all the flights have been canceled. And the family is expecting both of them to be home. Her family doesn't really celebrate Christmas, so she's kind of like, meh, whatever, I don't really need to get there. But his family is all about Christmas, and they're expecting him to be there, and his mom is like having a hard time accepting that Andrew may not be there. So Molly decides she's going to go out of her way and find whatever planes, flights, buses, ferries that she needs in order to make sure Andrew makes it home. Throughout the course of the book, you also see them start to explore the idea of a romance between the 2 of them and what that may mean for them as well. And the book is just so wonderful. It's honestly a warm cup of hot chocolate in a book. It's a sunny day overlooking the beach. Like, it is a beautiful, beautiful story. It just warms you up from the inside, and I think it's a perfect read for the holiday season. It only has 1 spice scene. If that's going to bother you, you can skip it, just letting you know. It's closer to the end of the book. The characters have been fleshed out and very well developed. So I wouldn't say it's a super spicy book or anything like that. The humor, the writing style, everything about it is just such a wonderful, wonderful read. And I adored this book. I adored this book. That's all I can say about it. The second book in the series is also wonderful, and it's telling the story of the second Fitzpatrick brother and his fake relationship with the girl of his love interest, basically. And that book is told from both characters' perspectives, which is also really fun. This one is primarily from Molly's perspective, which was very enjoyable to read. But I do think that overall, the book was amazing. It was such a treat to read, and I loved every second of it. Breathe With Me is the final book in the series Playing for Keeps. It's a hockey romance, and I never thought a hockey romance for me is going to make it onto the top 25 of 2025, but this one really did. Becca Mack just did a phenomenal job with this story. This is the story of Emmett and Kara. They are pillars of strength in the other books. They are the friends that help everybody else find their love. They're the ones that are supportive no matter what. They're the ones that you are rooting for and you love through every second of the other books. And now they are tragically struggling with starting their own family. And you get to see their relationship kind of process that and go through the struggle of that. And you get to see all of their friends be there for them. I'm getting emotional just thinking about this book. It's just such a beautiful book, and it's so much more than just hockey romance, and I loved every second of this book. I will say the first half of this book went way too much spice for me, and I had to skip many of the spice scenes, but the actual storyline and the actual plot in this book is incredible. Would strongly recommend. Another sports romance, hockey romance that I didn't think would actually stick with me, but actually ended up having a tremendous impact on me and one that I really enjoyed was Mile High. I thought that Liz Tomforde did an amazing job of exploring the idea of a woman's identity and how much pressure societal norms put on a person and their definition of inner beauty, which was one of the main issues the female character dealt with. I think it was also really interesting to see the idea of someone trying to develop an identity of their own, despite the fact that they might come from wealth or success or have other people that would support them, as well as looking at broken families and broken backgrounds at an inner depth as well. I think our main male lead character was very interesting to read with his estranged relationship with his mother as well. And both of these characters, I think, come from such different dynamics and such different worlds, and watching the two of them kind of come together and form the romance that they form, I think was very beautiful to see. It is a classic hockey romance, so of course there's going to be spice, there's going to be some physical attraction there, but I think the beauty of this book and what makes it really interesting is the level of depth that each of the characters had and the fact that it's actually explored before the romance is created. And I truly enjoyed this book. I can see now why it was such a huge hype. And we made it, guys. This is book number 25 of 2025, and of course it had to be a classic, and that is none other than The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. This is a true coming of age book that is following a young man's life journey from childhood all the way through adulthood, and what his life looks like as he navigates the world of being from a poor background all the way up to being in the echelons of high society, and the darker sides of that and the beautiful sides of that as well. All of this is also wrapped up within the story of the Goldfinch painting itself, which is a praised piece of art that has gone missing from a museum 20 years ago. You get to see him kind of deal with the underbellies of art and the underbellies of drugs and alcohol and mobsters, while also simultaneously, like I said, dealing with high society and highbrow people. And his ability to easily navigate each of those different worlds because of his childhood and his background is fascinating. You also get to see the roles that different relationships and friendships play in shaping this man's life. And I think in general, Donna Tartt is a celebrated author for a reason. The Secret History that she wrote was one of my favorite all-time books of 2024. I think it really looked into the narcissistic tendencies of humans, as well as the importance for youngsters to have an adult in their life that helps shape them and direct them in the right direction. And then also seeing how quickly the human mind can kind of fray and fall down the rabbit hole. This book is a little bit different. This is more looking at how circumstances and nature versus nurture play a role in shaping an individual, and how that in turn affects them as they grow older, and how that affects how they deal with various situations in their life. I think The Goldfinch was a beautiful book. I think it was probably one of the best books I've ever read. It is a large book. It will take time to get through. It is also one of those books that you can't rush. You have to take the time to actually sit down, read it, appreciate it. And I am so thankful to my book club for selecting this book for us to read as our classic this year, because it was phenomenal. It was a delicious book to read, and I'm so thankful to not only have read this, but to have it in my collection. And I see myself coming back to this book time and time again. And I think it definitely deserves its title as a classic. And that does bring us to the end of this video. If you guys managed to sit here for almost an hour and watch this video, thank you so much. I do appreciate you, and I am very, very impressed by your ability to sit through a video and hear someone talk. That being said, thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for being just as excited about books as I am. It means the world to me to be able to build this bookish community with you guys. Definitely let me know if any of these books struck true with you, if you've read any of them, if any of them are your favorites. Let me know what your top 25 books of 2025 were. If you guys have videos that you've created that talk about your favorite books, definitely send me the link for those videos. I would love to watch them. I would love to enjoy them. I would love to start a discussion with you guys about the books that you've read. Let me know what's on your TBRs. Let me know what your favorite books were. Let me know if any of these books are books that you guys love. And I will leave everybody with this. Whether you're new here or you're returning, I could not build this community without you. I am so thankful for the watches. I'm so thankful for the support. I'm so thankful for the time you take out of your busy lives and days to spend time with me. And I truly hope wherever you are, whether it's morning, evening, or night, that you're having plenty of time to rest, relax, read, enjoy yourself, spend time with loved ones, and really appreciate the beautiful side of life as well. Thank you for being here, and I hope to see you guys soon. Bye, guys.